Modern architecture, the problem of ornament, laws, ornaments, and crime.
Ornamentation and its role in modern architecture. Ornamentation can be described as the overabundance or excess of architectural decoration in a building. The act of saturating the facade with embellishment allows for optimal focal points, but I also find it takes away from the art of the building itself. Ornamentation was really brought up to attention when Loos called it out in his manifesto, Ornament and Crime. The crime of ornamentation changed the perspective and allowed architects to carve a new path entering the 20th century. Throughout the Renaissance and the medieval period, ornamentation was heavily used. The astonishing Sagrada family in Barcelona is an accurate representation of laboriously saturated ornamentation and how beautiful it can be. However, this style has slowly diminished across architecture. Adolf really shifted the architectural style in the early 1900s with the construction of Loos House. In his Ornament and Crime manifesto, he framed ornamentation as a fraud. Adolf wanted something real and raw, and he brought modernism into the equation. Although it was looked down upon at the time, he shifted the architectural timeline. This sleek look slowly grew and progressed through construction. Buildings like the Guggenheim, Colline Notre Dame de Hut, and Villa Savoy all derive from this modernism style as it slowly gained popularity across the world. Now, in the 21st century, modernism is one of the most sought-after architectural styles. From buildings to residential structures, the appeal of a clean look is something desired and not frowned upon.
Loos's arguments towards ornament. Adolf Loos argues that ornamentation represents cultural regression. He thought the interiors were beautiful, but blatantly dishonest. The use of the fake gold and bronze gave this impression. In the reading, Loos states that the evolution of culture is synonymous with the removal of ornamentation from utilitarian objects. His approach with designing without ornamentation had an impact on the style of architecture. Now, functionality has greater value over the use of ornamentation.
Adolf Loos saw ornamentation as outdated and believed modern design should focus on function instead of unnecessary decoration. In Ornament and Crime, 1908, he argued that ornament was primitive and even compared it to tattoos, saying, "The modern man who tattoos himself is either a criminal or a degenerate." His Loos, 1911, in Vienna put this idea into practice with its plain, undecorated facade, proving that good architecture doesn't need fancy details to stand out. Loos's ideas influenced modern movements like Bauhaus and minimalism, shaping the clean, functional designs that we see in architecture today. While controversial at the time, his views challenged architects to rethink what makes a building beautiful. Today, his ideas continue to influence designers who prioritize simplicity, function, and timeless style.
The early 20th century was the rise of modernist movements, but it was also a place of political instability, social division, and economic inequality. It was a time when new ideas of movements were emerging, but those ideas were often in conflict with the established order. Here are some of the arts that influenced and at the time showed a real version of Vienna. In art, we have Gustav Klimt with The Kiss, which captures the myth of Vienna's golden age. It could be seen as a real-life interpretation of Vienna, because behind its serene surfaces, violent forces were being gathered. We also have Egon Schiele, which his artworks portray bruises and emaciated people contoured with pain and desire, as if it was a representation of the true Vienna. For politics, we have Karl Lueger, who was a mayor of Vienna from 1897 to 1910. He transformed Vienna into a modern city, installing city street lights, water supply, and trams. However, he also exploited anti-Semitic sentiments for his own political gain, which later led to racism and discrimination of the Jews. For the psychology field, we have Sigmund Freud, who discovered the psychoanalysis and a new method of treatment of neurosis. He discovered the Oedipus complex, and this discovery has been said and believed that it could only be made in Vienna for being a place of creativity and emotional backup. There were a ton of writers that wanted also to talk about how Vienna's real life was. The journalist Ernest Drahr and Emil Klager, photographer, were the creators of Through the Viennese Neighborhoods of Mystery and Crime, a project that tells the story of Viennese victims living beneath the city. They interviewed and journal people's lives living beneath the city of Vienna and show all the people the conditions in which some Viennese were living in. A woman writer, Els Jerusalem, decided to write a novel called The Red House, which captures the miserable reality of life for women in Vienna and how impactful prostitution was at the time. She wanted to do a sharp critique of hypocrisy in Vienna and also break taboos. Music was also part of the movement. Arnold Schoenberg was born in a poor Jewish family in 1874. And in 1908, he produced a revolutionary string quartet too. He was very much criticized because of breaking classical music rules, because of the way he changes emotions along the music. No one at the time could understand what he wanted to reflect with his music, and that's why he said, "My music will be understood in 100 years." That could be a reflection of his futurist way of thinking. And last but not least, we have architecture, making a connection with Adolf Loos. As mentioned already on the past slides, he was the inventor of modern architecture, and he came up with this great Ornament and Crime essay, which also at the time was very controversial and was not liked by most of the society, but it also reflects, as many of the artists here, the way of futurist thinking. I believe that all these characters in particular have something in common, and that is their ambition to awaken society and reveal the golden Vienna.